This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Mark. And today's guest makes me joyful. That's because it's Shemaiah Gonzalez, author of the Substack and soon-to-be book, Undaunted Joy. And true to the Substack, it really was a joy speaking with her. I first learned of her work through a past guest, Joseph Massey, and I couldn't be more grateful. And like all good podcasts, we start with alcohol. Shemaiah has known for a long time that she wanted to be a writer, but her early ideas of what that meant were very different from what she has found herself doing. She started off hoping to be an academic writer, but that's just not what God had planned for her. One thing he did have planned for her was an inclusion of one of her works in Pope Francis's book, Sharing the Wisdom of Time. She tells me why it's important to get excited about trash bags and how she started her Substack, Undaunted Joy, that will become a book in the not-too-distant future. Shemaiah and I discuss writing to help with depression and the difference between happiness and joy. I also uncover her fear of capybaras and how a British abbot is connected to the Night Stalker. Give Shemaiah a follow on X at ShemaiahNG and on Instagram at ShemaiahG. Check out Undaunted Joy on Substack and look for Undaunted Joy the book in 2025. Follow us at Performance ANX on X and Instagram. Subscribe to us everywhere. Pick up merch at performanceanx.threadless.com and support our coffee habit at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. And let's get joyful with Shemaiah Gonzalez on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Oh, you'll take the worst one. Okay. This is Shemaiah Gonzalez, essayist and storyteller. You can find me on the Substack Undaunted Joy, which will be a book out with HarperCollins in spring of 2025. And I had a blast on performance anxiety today. Do you think that was all right? Okay. It's like pictures. Sometimes when I take pictures of groups of friends, it's the first one that comes out good. And then I keep taking them, and then I look back, I'm like, no, it was the first one.
And my wife is bringing me cookies. Thank you.
Oh, the best ever. What kind?
They're
double chocolate or something.
Yes.
Do you have your water?
No, but I have my bourbon.
Oh, so. See, and today of all days is my dry day.
Oh, I don't think I have one of those.
I indulged far too much this weekend, and so I'm on a juice fast today.
Oh man! Well, juice is good. I like juice.
Yeah, I see.
He said it really convincing.
And my drink used to be bourbon, but now it's gin. I
love gin too. I
do.
Gin and tonic is just one of the best things on the planet. I
like gin martini.
Oh, I've never been a big martini fan. They're a little too bitter.
Maybe that's why I like it.
I don't know. Maybe I just haven't had a good one. I'll just have to keep trying them until I get a good one.
Well, I'm an Anglophile, and the Brits are all about the gin and tonics. They don't even know how to make a martini. When I'm there, I've asked. Oh yeah, I've asked before, and the worst martini I ever had was in Glasgow, Scotland, and I think she put equal amounts of vermouth and gin, and I was like, "What the heck is this?" And so I showed her how to make one, and it was probably stronger than they usually make, but at least I got my martini.
Did they still charge you for it when you had to show them how to make it?
No. Then they just charged me for one.
Okay, good.
But that's when I kind of learned my lesson, that it's like, just ask for a gin and tonic. This is not the country for asking for martinis.
Which is strange because James Bond loved them shaken and not stirred.
Right? Thank you. I didn't even think about that.
And he was an English secret agent played by a Scottish actor.
Right.
Come on, UK.
I didn't even think about that. What's wrong with them?
The UK's got to get their act together. That's one of several problems they have.
Well, I love it there. I'm just like, when can I go next? I think when I finish this book, I want to go again kind of as a reward for finishing it. So,
well, I've been following your posts and the photos and the posts you made on Undaunted Joy, and I've never been to the UK, and now I kind of want to go.
So. Oh, did you follow my hashtag? Is that why? Because I did a hashtag of Undaunted Joy when I was in the UK, kind of exploring the idea.
I don't remember, to be honest with you. I went back and reviewed, and I was reading a bunch of the older emails that you send out, and they had a bunch of pictures in there too, and it's just amazing.
Yes. I thought so. I went to the UK in January, and I thought, I went for a month by myself.
Right.
I'm married and I have 2 kids, and I don't even know how it came about. Probably after those martinis that we discussed earlier. I don't know if my husband or I suggested it. He says I did. I him, because that seems really brave of me. He's the braver one, and he believes in me more than I believe in myself most of the time.
I have a relationship with my wife that's very similar.
Oh, that's beautiful. I like that.
Yeah,
that's good.
She believes in everything I'm doing a lot more than I do.
God bless her.
I will push her to try to do things outside of her zone. So good.
You're equally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I want to do is
go ahead.
No. This is fine. This is the way I like it to go.
You said tangents, stories.
Exactly. Tangent stories, side things.
Sidebars.
Yes, sidebars. That's a great word. Sidebars or 2 words. And long answers. I don't care. This is how I like it to go. I just like it being a casual, easygoing chat. I don't want it to be a bullet point interview. I hate those. I don't like listening to them, so I don't want to make one. So we mentioned a few of the things you've written and things you've worked on, but I want to find out how you kind of got into writing in the first place. I mean, was it something you did early on? Have you always been writing? I know from reading a little bit on your website that you grew up in LA and your childhood was not exactly an easy one. And is that why and how you turned to writing?
Well, my childhood was kind of tough, just poverty and abuse. And I always escaped into books. I loved reading, and I would escape into a book. And so I think that writing came out of that, because I wanted to do what was happening in the books. I wanted to do that.
Makes sense.
I'm not a fiction writer. I don't know if I've ever really tried to be a fiction writer. But also I think that my life's been interesting enough that I don't really need to make stuff up.
Well, that's awesome.
And so I journaled a lot when I was a kid to just try to make sense of things. And then I'd hide the journal, and then I'd throw it away. And I wish that I would have kept those, because that would be interesting. But also, maybe I don't. Maybe it's better.
You're not into going back and rereading some of your old writings?
Yeah. And then in college, I wanted to be a professor, and I was studying Victorian literature, and I was really into the academic side and trying to do research and critique literature. And life just kind of got side-trailed on that. And I'm glad it did. I mean,
really? Okay.
Lately I've been in situations where I'm with academics, and I don't have a doctorate. I have a couple of master's degrees. And there's some circles where academics are just lovely and really warm, generous people. Yeah. And then there's some where they're just like, like they got claws and they're just hard to relate to.
Oh, okay.
So I'm really grateful that I didn't go into academics after all. So Sure.
Well, you just answered one of the questions I was going to ask, because on this podcast, I have a lot of musicians on. I'm part of Pantheon Podcast Network, which is a music-focused podcast network.
Yes.
But I also love having people outside of music, and authors, photographers, artists, writers. That's how I discovered your work, was through a writer, Joseph Massey. So,
who I adore.
I love him so much. He's so awesome. Him and Jarvis just kill me. I love Jarvis.
Jarvis is Joseph's cat.
Yes. Insane cat who just the most emotive animal I've ever seen. It's insane. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Before you skip over this ad, give me 1 minute. Like most podcasts, I pick sponsors carefully, and I use the products that advertise here. Pure Spectrum CBD is a product that has been really beneficial for me. They have a wide variety of great products that can be used on a daily or as needed basis. I've been using the tincture every day, and it's been wonderful for easing anxiety. And I absolutely love the isolate. I use it instead of acetaminophen or ibuprofen, and it's worked so well for the relief of aches and pains. They also have soaks, lotions, salves, gummies, and more, plus an entire line for fitness recovery. They even have products for your pets. See everything they offer at purespectrumcbd.com. And if you have questions, they're there to help. They helped me when I had no idea where to start. After you fill your cart, use code PerformanceANX for 15% off your purchase. Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD. One of the things that I've learned through this is in almost every creative endeavor, any creative industry you get into, it's crazy cutthroat, and it's so insane. I know I dealt with it in photography. I hear about it all the time from musicians. I mean, we all know Joseph's backstory, and it just seems to be, I don't know, maybe it's just because I hear about it so much, but it seems to be more prevalent in industries that focus on creativity. I don't know if that's true or I'm just making that up, but it appears to be that way. I don't know. So you answered the one of the first questions I wanted to ask you already. So we're off to a good start.
I did. I didn't even know.
Okay, so you've gotten into college and you wanted to be a professor. You wanted to be on that end of things. What really flipped? What made you turn the corner into writing professionally?
Well, I got out of academia because I was engaged to be married, and that didn't work out.
Oh, wow.
And I'm so glad it didn't. I didn't get into academia, and I didn't marry that guy, and I ended up marrying my husband instead, and he's a million times better.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And then actually what happened was I switched my focus, and I went into seminary, and I started to, I've always been a person of faith. I've been a Christian since I was quite young, and I wanted to kind of just have a better understanding of what that was.
Okay.
And so I went to a little Protestant seminary in Portland at the same time that I started dating the man who would be my husband, who is a cradle Catholic. So at the time,
that's me.
Well.
Yep.
So at the time that I'm going to seminary, I'm also exploring Catholicism at the same time to understand this man that I'm dating a bit better. So I started going to Mass on Sundays, and it was almost like I was sneaking, sneaking out of the seminary to go. I didn't tell anyone, and I'd go at a noon Mass, or sometimes I would go with his friend that worked in town, and it was lovely. It was so different than what I grew up in. I grew up in Jesus churches that met in high school gyms, and it still smelled like feet.
Right.
And
people who needed their feet washed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But don't get me wrong. I learned so much from that too. It was just going to Catholic Mass was such a different experience for me. And mostly it was we alluded to Joseph earlier. I mean, it was about language, like just the beauty of the liturgy. And I loved that it wasn't emotive, that in the liturgy, I felt like when I went to other churches, often it was like, okay, everyone, today we're going to be really sad. And I've organized songs and readings for you today so that everyone's going to be sad together.
Oh, my God.
I was really in a good mood.
Man, I'm so bummed out. I went to church.
This sucks.
Yeah.
And then the next week I come and I'm feeling really heavy and low. And then they're like, we're all about the joy of the Lord today. We're going to clap. And I was like, oh, this is so not where I'm at. And I felt like liturgy is just reading it. And it's you can experience it whatever you're bringing to the table that day, you know? Right. And so I loved it. I felt full every time I left Mass. And so I ended up converting to Catholicism after I got a master's in intercultural ministry. And again, like all these things have informed my faith. I know a lot of people will be like, oh, I'm ex-evangelical and, oh, they're horrible. I'm like, no, I learned so much from that community.
That's awesome.
Each place I've experienced good people and bad people, and people who are fake and people who, really truly are trying to live their faith. And so I've enjoyed the Jesus movement. I've enjoyed the evangelical past in my seminary, and I enjoy Catholicism now. I mean, I just think it all is part of the journey. But again, telling the long story of how I got to writing.
Yeah. I love it. I love this.
Then I had a couple of kids. And before that, I worked with homeless for a while before the kids, which I also really enjoyed. It's a different scene out there than it was back then.
I can only imagine.
But I worked with homeless, and then we started having children, and we have two boys who are now young teens, so 12, almost 13 and 14.
Oh, wow. And, back to back, huh?
Yeah. Oh, I just Band-Aid, rip it off.
That's the way we did it. We have 3 back to back to back. Cool. We've got, an 18, 19, and 20-year-olds.
Wow.
Yeah, we just dropped the youngest one off at Penn State last weekend.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. So the other 2 were...
That's huge.
Yeah, my son took
your wife's making cookies. She's like,
I know.
Everyone's gone.
I know. Well, my son is still here because he took a year and going to end up being 2 years off because he really wasn't sure what he wanted to do. And he's finally figuring that out, I think. And he's a natural born engineer. So we're kind of trying to steer him in that direction.
Yes.
He's been in the workforce now for a little while, and he starting to understand how much it sucks. And so he can go back to sorry.
Right when I take a sip of water. Spit shot.
So he's now figuring out that if he can delay going back into the workforce a little bit, get a degree, he'll save himself a lot of time. Because when you very well know when you apply for a job, it says this degree or equivalent experience, and whatever amount of time you spend getting that degree, basically double it for the experience that they're looking for. So we're trying to impart that on him, and it's finally, I think, starting to kick in. So, and my other daughter is in Blacksburg, Virginia, but she's going to go to Oregon State online and study horticulture.
Oh, over here.
So, yeah, exactly.
On the West Coast.
But she's doing it online.
In Oregon yesterday. So. Excellent. So much fun. I don't think I lived with peers long enough,
Yeah.
Yeah. That seems like a fun time.
It can be. It can also be awful. Right. I did that for a little bit. Times were great. It was the best times.
I don't think I lived with friends. I think I just like rented a room off of Craigslist or something,
Ooh.
you know?
Oh, you were tempting fate.
I know. It's different when you get a place with friends.
You have no idea how close you came to getting murdered. So,
well,
so
that's another story. I haven't even written about that house that I lived in.
Oh my gosh,
that was cool.
I should get you and one of my former podcast guests on together, and we can all talk about apartment horror stories, because she rented a place. She was a singer and she moved out for like a residency in Vegas, and she moved into a new apartment building. There's like her and one other couple in there. Turns out they were bank robbers. So it was crazy. Yeah, if you want to hear that story, check out the episode I did with McCall Tauber. It's just an insane story.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. So
thank you.
It was just crazy. But so all right. So when was the moment that you thought writing is something that I can do for a living?
When my youngest son went into kindergarten, and I had 9 to 3 every day. Mine. That's when I thought, I want to try this out. And I had been sending out emails to some friends once a week. I think I called them 5 minutes, where it was kind of like for busy people that wanted just 5 minutes to kind of contemplate something more thoughtful, usually in the spiritual realm, but also I would connect literature or the arts or music with it. And I was sending out these emails to people, and they really enjoyed them. So I was like, I think one of them, someone said, you should send this out. This was really good. You should just clean it up a bit and send it to, there still is a place, online, a publication called Busted Halo. And it's a Catholic publication.
Is that who is that? Lino?
I don't know. It's out of New York.
There's a Busted Halo on Sirius XM.
Yes. Yes.
My brother used to work for that. He's a producer for Sirius. He used to be. Well, he actually still is a part of the Catholic channel. He used to work for a couple of the other shows doing some production there, but then he got a job with the Catholic channel. So now he actually is the executive producer for Gus Lloyd's show.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah.
Oh my goodness. Maybe I saw him at a conference.
That's quite possible. And if you ever listen to Gus Lloyd's show and you hear him talk about Scooter Man, that's my brother.
Scooter Man.
Yeah, his name's Scott. So Gus is a nut. He's awesome.
So I sent it in and it got published. It was my first thing. And then I just kept sending stuff in. So I wrote for them for a while and fairly often, and just tried to start branching out and writing for other Catholic publications, which is funny because I've been Protestant more of my life than Catholic, but I think that I'm known for being a Catholic writer. And I think maybe my latest endeavor might change that a little bit and open it up a bit.
When you write a story about your English professor that gets selected by the Pope to be included in his book,
that was weird.
You kind of get that Catholic tag on you.
I guess so. I kind of forgot about that, Mark. Thanks.
How did that happen?
Weird. That was so weird. And that was just a blog post that I wrote. And then I just wrote a blog post, and then Loyola Press reached out to me and they said, we read this post and can we, edit it a bit and talk about it and maybe include it in this book? I don't know. It depends if the Pope picks it or not. What the heck? And he picked it. And and that's just wonderful because my professor was just a wonderful, wonderful man. Yeah. And a Jewish man.
Oh, and nice.
Yeah.
You're covering all the bases here.
Yeah.
That's got to be insane. Getting a notice saying, "Hey, the Pope really enjoyed your story," and I just don't picture not just Pope Francis, any Pope sitting down and reading, and I guess more secular works. It just doesn't compute in my head. I don't know.
Yeah.
So strange. And going back to those original posts, has it always been something where you combined your faith with your writing and combine it with more secular topics?
Yeah. I try to, sometimes I try not to write about my faith, but it's really hard because it is something that just is seeped into my life. And I think that I view life differently than most people, and especially most people of faith, that I think people compartmentalize their faith and it's for certain parts of their day or certain parts of their life.
I think you're right.
And I'm just like, I'm reading this book and it makes me think about God in some sort of way, or I'm watching a bird, or, I'm just like, I'm running on the treadmill and it makes me think of God. Like, I really try to always have God's presence before me, where I'm thinking that he's here with me. And I discovered that was kind of a strange lens for most people, people of faith and people who aren't of faith. And people who don't have faith are very intrigued by that, because it's just a different way of looking at Christianity than I think is usually presented. And I'm not someone who likes to talk in lists, or I don't know. It seems like a lot of the writing, it's like, make a listicle. And so weird. But I'm a storyteller. It's like, I can just tell you where I see God working, or where I see beauty or joy. I think when one experiences beauty and joy, that's God's presence in our life. And I think that everyone looks for these big, huge things.
Yes.
And those don't happen that often. And one time, here's my tangent. And this is actually in the introduction of my book. Maybe 20 years ago, I was not as happy as a person as I am now.
Okay.
And God bless my husband for marrying me when I wasn't as happy as a person as I am now. But one time we were having someone over for dinner. I don't know if it was one of his colleagues or a neighbor. And we had dinner and we were just all sort of cleaning up the kitchen together. And the kitchen trash was full, the trash bag. And I said, the guy who was having dinner with us, he said, "Oh, tie that up and I'll take it out to the trash can for you." I was like, "Oh, great." So I tied it up and then I went to get the new trash bag to put it in. And it was one of the new fangled trash bags that are stretchy and that smell good. And I just opened the box. And so I was really excited about it. I was like, look. And I just like made the biggest deal about it. I'm like, these are the new Flex Force stretchy. It was like there was a camera on me, Like I was way too excited about these trash bags. Like it really was like I was in a commercial.
This dinner sponsored by Hefty.
Right. That's what and then I just like got really red and I was like, what the heck am I doing? Because my husband works at a law firm and some of his friends are really fancy and I'm always like saying weird things like this. And so I just got really red and then I was, I could hear like everything stopped. Like,
the record scratch.
Dork. Yeah. I'm like, I'm such a dork. And without skipping a beat, the guy says to me, grabbing the the full trash bag to take out for me, goes, "Hey, you got to get excited about this sort of stuff because the big stuff doesn't come that often." And he said, "And when it does, it's usually bad."
Wow.
And then he just like walks out the door.
With your trash.
With my trash. And he just sort of said it in passing. And it really stuck with me because you got to get excited about the little stuff. Because there's lots of little stuff in life.
Oh, yeah.
But there's not that much big stuff. And usually when it does happen, it is bad.
That is so true. So I never thought of it like that.
After that, I'm like, I'm going to get excited about trash bags. I'm going to get excited about, the robin that's sitting on my gate. I'm going to get I mean, I don't know. My kids could tell you all the goofy things I get excited about. They're like, Mom's TED Talk about such and such, you know.
About floor wax. Stuff
So
is
I think
amazing.
yes. So I think just realizing that I could take a small moment in life and stretch it out to something more meaningful in some way and see how God was working or present, then I just wanted to tell stories. I'm like, don't people tell stories anymore?
No. Like you said, they do lists.
Yeah, they do lists.
They do lists. So here's what made me happy today, 1 through 10.
Or they preach, and I don't really feel like I don't need to preach. I just want to tell a story.
Yeah.
You know, and you figure out what you want for it, you know, from the story.
And what I've found is, because I've been known to get excited about a topic and come across as preachy, and go figure, you know, Catholic government podcast, you know, go figure. But that never comes across to the person I'm talking to as well as it sounds to me. So,
Right.
So a story, something a little more entertaining, a little more, like you said, less preachy, a little more story-ish. That's not even a word, but I think that gets a point across a lot better, a lot more, in a more acceptable way to a larger audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I've kind of found in my limited reach. But we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. So is that when you started to think about doing Undaunted Joy, or was that a little bit before Undaunted Joy?
That was before Undaunted Joy. Undaunted Joy came about during the pandemic. And
makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say other people. Well, you know, we were all losing our footing. All of us were losing our footing.
Yeah.
And we were all quite fearful. And it didn't take me long to say, what the heck am I doing? I'm just spinning out of control. I'm freaking out. I'm getting very fearful, and I can't live like this, you know? And so it was pretty quickly that I realized what I was doing. Thank you, years of therapy. And I was like, I can't do this. I need to refocus and ground myself. And again, it's my faith that grounds me. And it was really frustrating to me to reach out to other people of faith and have them be not helpful. They were very fearful. And again, I couldn't be preachy at them because it was hard for people to listen to the truth during that time. And so I just started pointing out beautiful things and joyful things, as small as they were. And I would put them on social media every day. I went for a walk today. Here's the 5. I'm sorry, I made a list. Here's the 5 beautiful things I saw today, or the neat things that happened to me. And I'd encourage other people to share them too, because joy is contagious. And when you share joyful things, and they're contagious. And I realized that was almost revolutionary to people.
It really
because
is.
They were really caught up in being fearful and angry and wanted to stay in that fearful, angry place. And I was just not going to have it.
I love that.
And there's that wonderful book about Lewis and Clark, and I'm forgetting the name of the author, and it's right here somewhere in my book pieces, but it's, Stephen Ambrose, Undaunted Courage. And that, you know, all that they based on the core discovery, Lewis and Clark and the people in their group, and they just courageous, keep plodding forward. And I just thought, like, joy, like in the face of anger and fear, like undaunted joy, and how just being joyful was revolutionary, was a kind of a weird word to use, but to say a weapon against that sort of energy that was all around.
Well, exactly. That's the one thing that can really fight all of that is joy and love. And it goes back to what you grew up, your parents would say, kill them with kindness, or if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. But it's really just like you said, the best weapon against everybody being angry and fearful, because they don't know how to react, and it's hopefully contagious to them. I mean, unfortunately, it can be contagious the other way, but it's hard to me. It's harder to fight somebody who's joyful about something than it is to do the other way. It's easier for me to lift somebody up than to try to knock somebody down.
Yeah,
it's also better.
Yeah,
that also. One of the interesting things is you purposefully look for and write about joy every day. That's got to be hard sometimes. And I mean, you wrote a post about going back to LA that, and how difficult that was. So it's, you're even finding joy in things that are difficult for you. And it's, you find a silver lining or joy, or basically God's presence in everything. And to me, I love it, because I'm a person who kind of tends to focus on what could go wrong. So that's the Irish Catholic in me.
That used to be me, and sometimes is me. My husband would say, yes, the gas station on the corner is going to blow up any minute. Because that's where my mind would go, like, gosh, I can't stop thinking that we live so close to a gas station. What if it blows up?
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But if you practice it, it rewires your mind, and you start to look for it and see it a lot more easily. But it's not really joy if you can't find it in the hard times too.
Exactly.
And that's what makes joy different than happiness too. It's deeper, it's more resolute, and it's not. And I always try to counter it with reality, because I don't want people to think, and I've heard, you hear that term, this is such a Pollyanna with the happy everything's happy, everything's good. And it's like, what, people, do you remember that story, Pollyanna? Her parents are dead.
Right.
Like, why do we say, such a Pollyanna? This is a little girl who lost her parents, who she's apparently close enough to still talk about the lessons that she learned from her father. Like, he made that much of a difference. He wasn't a mean guy. And she still chose to look for good. So I'm like, I don't understand. Why do we use that term?
Why is that a bad? Why do people use that to denigrate somebody? I mean, it's just that sounds like a triumphant story. Now that because to be honest, I never read it. I don't know. I didn't know your parents died.
I never read the book either, but I saw the Disney movie when I was a kid. I didn't read the book either, but now I want to, because I was just thinking about that last month. I was like, this little girl lost her family, and then she goes to some aunt that doesn't even know and it's kind of mean to her, and she's still nice to her. Man.
That's like somebody you should look up to.
Right. So I try to pair joy with reality. And I got to tell you, I see reality, I think, more clearly than most people. I don't know. I see darkness quite easily.
Okay.
As much as I see the light.
So that brings me up to my next question, because like I mentioned, I was going back and reading some of the older posts. And one that stuck out to me was Undaunted Joy number 20, where you said you were gripped by a smothering depression.
Yeah.
Now, has writing about joy every day helped you to handle things like that better? Or is it more of just an outlet to know or to let other people know that what the fear that they're facing, they're not alone, that other people are dealing with that too? Or maybe both?
I think both. Yeah, both. And the depression is fewer and far between.
Oh,
definitely.
That's good.
Yes. And even when circumstances, the last week or two have been quite interesting for me. But so one could think that I could fall into depression because of the circumstances. But I think because I've been practicing joy so much, it's easier for me to bail out of it. But I think writing really helps me to see things more clearly and to see what's going on, patterns in my own life where, you're believing lies about yourself again, Shemaiah. You do this.
Wow.
You do this when such and such happens, or when I go back to Los Angeles. I'm from Los Angeles. So a lot of sad things happen there, and a lot of hard things, and a lot of people that I don't really want to be around anymore. And I'm not around them, but just that they're there in the 50-mile radius of where,
And then that kind of goes back to the gas station thing you're thinking about. I am within 50 miles. I might run into one of them.
I might run into them, and sometimes I do. And, and I'm fine.
Good.
I'm fine. Yeah. But you have to rewire your brain. And that's what so much of cognitive therapy is about, just learning something else to do instead of meditating on the gas station on the corner, meditating on joy, and saying, I'm just going to do this for 3 minutes and see what happens. I don't have to do this for an hour, but for 3 minutes, set a timer and, oh my, I feel better, or I'm going to walk for I do everything to a timer. If it just seems so hard to do, like exercise, I'm like, I'm just going to go outside for 5 minutes. And then when the timer turns on, I'll turn around. And that's how I started exercising, which is a big part of my joy practice as well. It gets all related to move your body, and that helps your spirit as well. So I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm all over the place.
No more or less than any other.
That's why I write, because I can't tell a story. I can't tell a story linearly. I have to write it down.
The editing process is a little different.
My writing is a lot better than my speaking.
Well, one of the other things that I thought was really great was that you welcome guest posts with Undaunted Joy.
Yeah.
Like the most recent one by Tracy Rhodes. That was awesome. And I hope
you do one, Mark.
Oh, I'll work on it. I promise I will work. I don't know what I'll write about, but I'll work on something. So it was really cool. And then you can interact with with the guest writers. It's really wonderful. And it's introduced me to some other great people like Tracy. And it's really fun to find so many other people who are not doing the exact same thing you are, but have the same attitude, the same viewpoint, or similar, I should say, maybe necessarily the same, but similar in looking for the good in things and trying to help other people see the good in things. And it's really a beautiful read each day. And I really look forward to seeing them come into my inbox.
Thank you so much. I love that because, if it's just me all the time, it becomes narcissistic, And that's
maybe I should get some guest hosts on the podcast.
I'm not saying that, dude. But I'm just saying, like I'm not joy. Shemaiah is not joy. It's not about me. It's to help other people put on the lens and to see the world differently, and then to share it. There's a Anne Sexton poem where she says something about joy not shared dissolves or goes away. Now I can't remember the exact
It's
line.
amazing that you mentioned that, because I went back and like I said, I went back and read, and it's from Undaunted Joy number 29.
Oh my gosh.
And you wrote the Anne Sexton quote, "The joy that isn't shared dies young."
Yes.
And I wrote that in my notes because I thought that was an amazing quote, an amazing sentiment.
Beautiful? And here's a woman, Anne Sexton killed herself.
Oh,
So yeah. So she's someone who was struggling with that too. She saw light and darkness equally as well. And so she was writing to try to quell the darkness in her as well. So again, we can't use the word Pollyanna, but there's got to, I'm just saying it's not from a naive lens.
right.
It's not that I don't understand tragedy or darkness. Like I said, I came from an abusive childhood and a childhood of poverty. And so anyways, having guests, people get tired of hearing my voice, and to hear another voice, say, it's almost like, here's the glasses, now you put them on, and also just to share the space, because I did it as an experiment. Like I started the Substack a year ago. So what is it? April 2022, as a practice for myself, and also to see if people would be interested. And it just grew. And so now I have a lot of followers, and I want to share that with other people. I mean, it's part of literary citizenship. People have been so kind to me, giving me jobs and space, and looking at my work and editing it, when I feel cross-eyed, looking at it and saying, does this make sense? So it's a way to share what I have with other people. And I have mine for September all set up.
Awesome.
I set that one up, and I just love hearing other people's experiences that I wouldn't necessarily think of.
Yeah, that's the point.
Limited. And especially, that's why I say that I would really like to hear from you, because I think we've had a lot of female writers on, and it'd be nice to hear from a male perspective. But I'm also very surprised, and my husband and I were talking about this the other day, that I feel like I have an equal amount of male and female readers.
Oh, wow.
Which, for a woman of faith to be writing about spirituality, that's usually 90% women readers.
I hate to say it, I can see that.
And I think I sometimes I don't know why that's true. And my husband says, because I don't sugarcoat anything, that I talk about that darkness equally. And it's often editors want to edit that out. Oh, couldn't you write about your childhood best friend's suicide in a glossier way?
A little more joyful way,
And I'm like, no. I want you to know what I've been through, you know? So I think that I look at those situations realistically. I think that brings in more of my male audience. But I don't know.
And the writing has opened up opportunities for you. So, and before we even get into the book, beyond the book, has Undaunted Joy given you anything that surprised you? Opportunity or introductions to people? Maybe someone who subscribed that you were blown away by? Or what are some of the greatest things that Undaunted Joy has given to you?
Gosh, where do I start? As you listed all of like the possible answers, I was like, yes. I think, well, someone that surprised me that became a subscriber and was my first paid subscriber is writer Sherman Alexie, who is big. He did Smoke Signals, which was made into a film, poet and writer and poet fiction writer and memoirist. And he's actually a neighbor of mine.
Really?
He lives about a mile away, and I used to see him all the time on walks. And I think now that we've found each other on social media, he's like, oh, of course I know who he is. Yeah. But I think now that he's like, oh, I used to see that lady at Starbucks all the time. But he's just been so encouraging of my work, and that's been very special. And hopefully one day I can have coffee with him at Starbucks. But also just a sense of openness. I think I was telling you earlier, I thought I was going to write this book in England in January.
Right.
I went to England. I went for a month by myself with just a backpack. Like, that was it, a travel backpack.
That's awesome.
And I stayed at monasteries a week at a time as to not outwear my welcome.
Right.
And also because they're safe for a woman traveling alone.
Good point.
And they're cheap.
Another good point.
And I could stay close to liturgy and just be praying constantly. And that was wonderful. And I thought that I was going to write about this book. I was going to write these essays, but instead it was about gathering the seeds for the essays. And that seemed pretty obvious, maybe day 2 into a 30-day trip.
Wow, that early. Oh my gosh.
Which seemed weird to me. I'm like, so really, I'm just going to walk around and just talk to people and have nice experiences? And it was like, yeah, that's it.
Oh, that's amazing.
And just be open. And all the things that happen just from being open to experiencing joy. And I realized that for many years, joy was a frightening experience for me. Joy sometimes feels like anxiety.
Really? You know? I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because joy is exciting, and excitement feels a lot like anxiety.
That's a good point.
Think about your kids when they are getting ready for the first day of school or whatever, and they start talking about it, and then they're, you can see them and they're getting anxious, and they're all the signs point to anxiety. But if you flip it and you say, honey, you're not anxious, you're excited. You're excited about the first day and about meeting new people, and you're not scared about, they're like, oh, but the emotions are so similar to each other.
You know what? I have heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. That I would stop myself from fully being happy because it felt like free falling,
Yeah. Now, it's funny. My wife brought that up to me a few years ago, now that you mentioned it. And I think it was something to do with those kids in school. Yeah. And she told them.
Social, yeah.
Yeah. She said exactly what you said. You're not anxious. You're excited. And that's the first time I really had ever heard that. And thought that's really interesting. I'd never thought of that. I wish somebody had said that to me as a kid.
Yeah.
Because that may have changed my entire academic output.
Saved me years.
Exactly. So you are working on a book version of Undaunted Joy. So I want to know a lot more about that. How did that happen? And what is the format going to be like? Because each Undaunted Joy that comes out in the email is a short story. Is it going to be similar to that, or is it going to be a different format?
Yeah. So I know someone said, well, shouldn't the book be finished though? You just cut and paste from there. I was like, nah.
That would be great.
Someone did ask me that. I think, the Substack I've just used as an experiment, and none are longer than 500 words. And they're like no editing involved. Like I just write it, read it over once, and that's the extent of the editing. And so these will be more more nuanced essays, kind of using exploring the ideas that I've talked about in the Substack, but going a little bit deeper and playing with language a bit more.
Fun. And
using a little more research. Not all of them, but they're really grounded in storytelling. I noticed that there's kind of three formats. One is storytelling that's kind of a little more tender and maybe a little more theological, using my seminary degree.
Okay.
And then there's another format, which is what the author Brian Doyle called a proem, kind of a hybrid of a poem and prose.
Okay.
Where he would encapsulate a moment in time. And so they're shorter than a prose piece and sort of play with language. So it's a little more poetic in language. I wrote one of those for a U.S. Catholic about a prayer of thanks for the drive-through car wash. So
that's a good one. That deserves some credit.
I love the drive-through car wash. If we have time, I could even read that one because it has been published, so I could read it too. But
yes.
And then there's a third essay that I'm just describing as me unhinged.
Oh, now that has piqued my interest.
Because it's just like my inner thoughts and a little bit of craziness in a good way. One of the essays that I included in the book proposal was the joy of naps. I take a nap every day in my chair. Oh, you can see it.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
In my chair for 25 minutes. And so I wrote this wacky essay about like how there's all these things I have to have perfect, and how my grandma used to sleep in her chair, and she'd have like drool coming down the side of her cheek. It looked like a waterfall cascading. And then I say, Nana, are you sleeping? And she goes, I'm just resting my eyes.
That's what sleeping is.
And I always thought that she was dead. I was like, oh gosh, is she dead? And then the crazy thing is, she wasn't that much older than I am now. Oh. And I thought she was ancient. I'm like, gosh. So
I know.
There's just some wacky essays like that about my love of naps, how I have a strange fear of capybaras for some reason.
Oh my gosh! Don't tell my oldest daughter. She loves those things.
Okay. I know a lot of people love them, and I understand why. They're very chill animals, but they are also rodents of unusual size.
Exactly.
They're 90-pound rats.
And Carrie Elwes is not here to defend me.
So that's another one of the essays that I wrote for the book.
That is awesome.
Those are things that I haven't explored on the Substack, and I really play with letting people see my inner wackiness.
That's awesome. I love that.
I think it's like the most me writing I've ever done before. So I really enjoyed that, and I hope that other people enjoy it.
Well, if it's anything like this conversation, I'm going to love it. I cannot wait to read this. So
you're so kind.
So how far along are you? Is there a slated publishing date, year?
Yes. Okay. So I churn it in the spring. So like the last day of February, whatever that is this year. Is it 28 or 29? I don't know. The last day. And then it will come out in April of 2025.
Okay.
So it seems forever in the future.
It is a long process.
As far as writing, it's pretty fast paced. I hope to get to the midpoint next month in the writing process. So it's really fast paced.
It's coming along. That's fantastic.
About 35 to 40 essays in So I think it'll be the kind of book that, you could just pick up and read a little something short to make you laugh, or if you're feeling down, or, you don't have to invest in a whole book at once or a whole story. It could just be a couple of pages. And I think it might be the kind of book that will just make you feel better.
That's sorely needed.
Yeah. And then when your friend's having a crappy week, you're like, hey, I bought you this book because I saw you were having a crappy week on social media,
That's awesome. Because if you look at what's popular in things like podcasts and streaming shows, it's all true crime. And
oh gosh.
So something like this is sorely needed to kind of counterbalance all the heaviness. And I will admit, I love true crime podcasts. I listen to some really weird ones. So I don't know if I'll promote them here, but there are certain ones I go back to all the time because they're true crime or an interesting topic, and they're funny.
And they're funny?
Yes.
I used to like that stuff until it seeped into my dreams. And then I'm like, I don't want bad dreams like this.
I don't blame you.
But I want to tell you a funny true crime story.
Sure.
Let me tell you a funny true story. So when I'm staying at those, so I told you I stayed at all those monasteries in England during research for the book, and just kind of being open and experiencing joy. Like, I'd meet someone and they invite me somewhere. I'm like, all right, let's go.
That's awesome.
And I'm at this monastery in southern England, and it's out in the countryside. And after Mass on Sunday, the monks and I have not talked to these monks all week. I'm just on my own.
Okay.
But on Sunday, they invite me to come for coffee in like whatever, a big room, the living room or something. Yeah. We like to have coffee and chocolates and talk. So I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't talked to anyone all week. So I go in and I'm meeting all of the monks, and the abbot, so he's the leader of the community. He finds out that I grew up in Los Angeles. And so he comes over to me and he's like, did you live in Los Angeles when The Night Stalker was there? Because I've been watching The Night Stalker on Netflix.
Oh my gosh.
What? So I'm praying all day and then you go and put on Netflix and watch them. And he's like, I think, and now I feel bad talking about him, but I think what it is that he's a person who sees light much more easily. Mm-hmm. And I think that what I understood from what he said, that he watched these shows because he doesn't see the darkness out there as clearly. And so he would watch these shows to kind of give him an insight. But I was just dying laughing because I'm like, I lived in Los Angeles during The Night Stalker. Like, it was the hottest summer and nobody would sleep with their windows open. Nobody, I was too poor for air conditioning, but we're like suffocating our houses because we don't want him like climbing through our window and killing us.
No kidding. Oh my gosh.
Everyone was like painting their houses a different color so that, the Night Stalker wouldn't, because what was it? He only went to yellow houses or something?
Something like that. I don't remember the color thing, but he had some very odd ways of choosing his victims. Yeah. It was Richard Ramirez, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And all I know is I remember the day that they caught him because he went into this neighborhood in Boyle Heights where my grandma lived there. Wait, my great grandma lived there. And I knew some people at my school who lived in that neighborhood. And one of the moms came to pick up her kids and they're like, they caught the Night Stalker. And you know the story, right? Mm-hmm. Like, just people from the neighborhood were like, there he is. And then like they go and run after him. And the whole neighborhood just came out and like started beating him up and called the cops and like hold him down. And I was like, yeah, these are my people.
That's right.
Like, that's so awesome. Which I also told the monk that I guess he hadn't got to that part in the story yet. He was just like watching a little bit of Netflix.
Why is it so strange for me to think of an abbot watching Netflix?
Oh, it was very strange to me. Also because there was no internet there. So I asked, is there a Wi-Fi password so I could work while I was there? And they're like, no, there's no Wi-Fi password. I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like way out in the country. But then after prayers at night, all of a sudden I'd see on my phone, there's a new Wi-Fi. And it'd be like, I want to join, but I don't have the password. And it's Abbott's Netflix. So he would turn on the Wi-Fi.
Oh my gosh. That's sneaky.
I'm sorry. I didn't say where, so I'm telling all the secrets.
No. You don't know. We don't know where. We don't know who.
Yeah.
And
somewhere in South England. But these were such good men. When I left, I cried, and I didn't. No. It was one of those like moments where I didn't know I was going to cry. Those moments in there's a couple of scenes in movies where you just like start bawling for no, like. You don't think it's going to happen. But one of the monks came to say goodnight and goodbye to me. And all of a sudden crying were like snot coming out of my mouth. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, he goes, you're very emotional. I go, yes, I am. Where did that come from?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, you guys are just wonderful men.
Oh.
And he looked at me and goes, but we drive each other crazy. And I go, oh, I can tell. I can tell that you. I go, but it's just such a microcosm of humanity, like 9 men living with each other. And I'm there for a week, and I could see that there were certain things that drove one monk crazy that another monk would do, and they would roll their eyes, or they would, Oh
yeah. And as holy as they are, they're still human.
They're real people that have made a commitment to each other and to God, and are struggling through that right in front of your eyes. They're not.
It's one of the most beautiful things on earth.
Oh, it's so beautiful, and I didn't expect to feel that emotional when I left, and I just bawled.
Oh.
I was like, I'm so sorry. You're just such wonderful men.
Oh my gosh. Well, that is beautiful. So we've got a little bit about the book coming out. What is the best way for people to follow you and subscribe to your Substack? How can they keep an eye on what you're doing?
I think the Substack is the best way, and it's Undaunted Joy. Shemaiah Gonzalez, which I think you should just write Undaunted Joy, because Shemaiah Gonzalez has a lot of help in it. And you can find me that way. And then on social media, I'm most active on Twitter. X.
Yeah,
X now.
When that happened, I had no idea, and my app just turned to X. And I'm like, what is this? Where did Twitter? Because I am actually not super active on Twitter or X or either of those. I'm more Instagram, because I was a photographer, so I'm more visual.
Oh.
So I'm a lot more active on that. So when that change took place, I had no idea that was coming. And my app I'm like, what is this X thing? And where did Twitter go?
Someone just downloaded something on my phone.
I know. I thought I was starting to get mad at the kids. I was like, what did you guys, who had my phone? Who took my phone?
Did you put a tracker on my phone?
Well, my girls are notorious for taking my phone and taking a bunch of ridiculous selfies on purpose and then just leaving it on my phone. And then I'll go and I'll look at my pictures, and it'll be like this weird distorted picture from like the forehead down, and it looked like either like a pinhead from the other. I don't know if I can say pinhead anymore.
That's the way they.
I may have just canceled myself.
Yeah. I love Carney stories.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's my family.
One of my favorite books is Geek Love. Have you ever read that?
No.
At Catherine Dunn. I read it maybe every other year. I just read it again recently.
Oh, wow.
It's such a fantastic. It's a story about a family of sideshow people.
Right. So, that sounds like I bet you my kids would love that too.
I don't recommend it to everyone because it is sick and twisted.
Oh, my oldest daughter would probably like that.
It's sick and twisted. So these two normal people get together and they want their kids to be special. So they experiment with drugs.
Whoa.
So that their children will be born with different deformities.
Oh my God. Okay. So that sounds like I should read it.
Yes. It's very, very interesting. And just a deep commentary on society and, who's special and who's not.
When was that written? How long ago?
I want to say the 80s, but
wow.
Like, of course, it's right here. I should just look. I don't know. Mine is so marked up. Someday I'm going to write about it. But why can I never find that page that has the...
I know.
83.
Wow. Yeah. They had no idea that they were ahead of their time with being famous just for being famous.
Yes.
Like social media fame.
There's more to the story, but I don't want to.
You're going to give it away. So
it's very relevant for today.
I will definitely have to check that out. So, all right. So what are your Twitter handles, Instagram handles, and,
Good question. Well, I know they're my name, but I'm sorry. Okay. No,
it's funny. I've actually got your website up here. So
on X, it's Shemaiah NG. You spell my name Shemaiah, SHE, M as in Mary, AIAH.
All right.
Shemaiah NG on X. And then I think it's just Shemaiah G on Instagram.
Let's see.
And I'm on Facebook too.
Okay.
I have a regular page and a writer page.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Well, it's been wonderful, joyous even speaking with you. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about the book and your Substack and how you got into doing the work of spreading joy. I think it's beautiful. I look forward to your emails, and I am excited to see them come in each and every time. And I look forward to more, and really looking forward to that book because I do want to read some raw Shemaiah there.
Thank you so much, Mark. And like I said, you were my treat for getting all my work done today, is to get to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
I'm bummed that this is it. It was so much fun.
We can keep going if you like. That's fine with me.
No, I don't mean that. I hope that, I hope our paths cross more.